So, my dear sisters and brothers, as we can well imagine, the customs of hospitality are very different among the various cultures and nations of what we call our family of humanity, and have certainly changed over history. The one thing they have in common is that they wish to make whoever is our guest feel welcome and a part of our family. And so what we gather here tonight to celebrate the great sacrament of the Eucharist, we are given this extraordinary episode in the life of Jesus, where the custom of the age to make a person welcome is done in the strangest of times by the most unlikely of persons. For you can well imagine that in a time and in a place mostly of desert that was hot, to make a guest welcome, you would allow them and ask them as they enter into a home to have their feet washed so that the dust of the road could be washed clean and they can be cooled and refreshed, literally from the bottom up. Tonight we hear that beautiful gesture of welcome is done by not a slave, but the master of the house, the master of the table, the master of all creation. For it was the task of the slave or the servant to make the guest welcome. Jesus takes that place of a slave. The night before his life was forfeited by 30 pieces of silver, the cost of the life of a single slave in the Roman Empire. And if that was not provocative enough, its timing was strange, because we hear in the gospel that Jesus washed the feet of the disciples after the meal was finished, after they reclined at table, not when they arrived, because Jesus was trying to teach them a lesson not about what he was doing, but what he had already done. For recall what happens at the table of the Last Supper. Jesus takes the rituals of the Passover, the celebration of God's chosen people set free from the slavery of Pharaoh and brought into the liberation of the Promised Land. Jesus takes that ritual and gives it eternal meaning by taking simple bread and wine, and foreseeing his death the next day, makes it the sacrament of our liberation from sin and death, and makes it the sacrament by which we will eternally be with him in his glory. He gives it to the apostles to strengthen them, yes, to encourage them, yes, but also to give them the grace so that they might do what? That they might also give their life over for love of their neighbor, as the master would give his life for the whole world. For you see, my friends, on this altar where heaven and earth kiss, on this altar, when we enter into the mystery of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, we are seeing the greatest act of love creation will ever know, over and over again in the one singular, irrepeatable act of Jesus' self-offering, freely given, so you and I may be set free from sin and death. And in that remarkable self-emptying, self-giving, in that remarkable act of love, Jesus waits until after he gives the sacrament to show them what it really means. with their own eyes, with their own feet, to teach them what it means to love and to give, even if it requires to take the place of the servant or the slave. To be able to do what no one else would dare to do. To give and not count the cost. To make oneself available until perhaps there's nothing else to give. Jesus is teaching them that whoever receives this must be ready to do this. And if we're not ready to do this, to give, then we must examine ourselves deeply of why it is we come here to receive the ultimate sacrament of pure divine love. My friends, we gather here in quiet now. The bells are silent. The organ is silent. We have begun the great mystery of our salvation. We gather here as if we were in the upper room, huddled, waiting, watching. We gather around the table of the Lord. And in his priest, you will hear once again the same words the apostles heard in that very first night we remember. And we will be able to do what they did, come forward to receive the bread broken and the cup shared, so that the life of Christ may dwell in our hearts, in our stomachs, in our spirit, in our mind, in all of who and what we are. But let us consider that as we adore the Lord in just a few minutes, let us consider how ready we are, how willing we are, how prepared we are to truly follow in the footsteps of the Lord, being encouraged by his sacred body, blood, soul, and divinity, and to love as he did, with friend, spouse, child, nephew, neighbor, acquaintance, co-worker, and even enemy. And if we are not ready to do that, let us sit before the Lord tomorrow on the Mount of Calvary, when he shows us with our own eyes how much he loves us, and to pray that his Spirit may help us wherever we go, wherever we find ourselves, even if it means taking the place of the servant and slave, to pray for the grace to love as he did.